What's up YouTube? Mike, Powers Carvings and Crafts, coming at you today with another video. Today's video is going to be on a knife, the new Civivi Yonder, so stick around. So the Civivi Yonder is a new knife from Civivi, designed by Zac Whitmore, Acorns. If you have been around the knife community for a long time, you know who Zac Whitmore is. He's kind of loved unanimously in the knife community. But he designed this knife after a life of traveling and working. And this knife really caught my attention because Zac was a blue-collar guy, a mechanic and a carpenter. I'm a blue-collar guy. As you can see, I love woodworking. I'm a plumber by trade. So I figured, hey, what the heck, I'll pick it up. Typically at work, I use a standard utility knife, Milwaukee Fastback. Even though I am a big knife guy, I typically don't use a pocket knife at work because I'm a lot of times cutting against steel, cutting against ceramic, cutting against tile, cutting against concrete, and that ruins knives. But there's plenty of tasks I do at work where I'm not destroying a knife, so it's nice to have an extra knife with me that I keep really sharp for cutting open boxes, cutting open packages, cutting insulation, for water lines, cutting strapping, everything along those lines, reaming PVC pipe after I cut it. I picked up the G10 model because, like I said, I'm a plumber, and that micarta model will soak up a lot of stuff, including sewage, which I do deal with, so I didn't want my knife to turn into a poop knife, so decided to pick up the G10 model. I think I will get the micarta model here soon, probably not carry it at work, but just because it looks really cool. But yeah, so a couple things I like about this knife. I like that swooping belly that it has, like so. And I like that reverse tanto as well. It keeps plenty of strength in that tip by allowing it to stay pretty thin and slicey. That tip strength is good, especially if I'm cutting drywall. After I cut the drywall with my saw, a lot of times I have to pry that drywall out of the wall. And if I use a flathead screwdriver, a lot of times it'll damage the remainder of the drywall that wasn't cut. So it's always nice to stick a knife in there. And typically whenever I use my utility knife for that, it snaps the tip off of the knife because, you know, utility blades are so thin and brittle. So a nice rigid pocket knife is good for getting in there for that kind of work. I also like the blade length. It's really good for waterline insulation. The utility knife, I kind of have to go all the way around the waterline insulation, and I was using my Swiss Army knife as a secondary blade to cut insulation for water lines, especially in water heaters. But if I'm in a garage and I am cutting insulation, it's good to have something that I can pop open with one hand, cut the insulation to length, close it back down, and set it back on top of the water heater. With the Swiss Army knife, I would either have to leave the blade open, which I'm very notorious for knocking stuff off of this water heater, which would then damage my knife, and it would risk damaging the owner of the house's property. So this is really awesome to be able to flick open, cut that insulation, flick it back closed, and the fact that it can remain so thin, it can do the tasks that I need it to do. A thicker knife isn't really great for the tasks that I do as a plumber. So the main things that I ask my knife to do, other than my utility knife is, I use it to, you know, cut stuff in sewage. I use it to cut shims against ceramic tiles. I use it to scrape the old caulking off of the bottom of old toilets. I use it to cut mechanical rubber ferncoes off of cast iron piping, everything like that. I'm not going to use this knife for that. That's stupid and that's abuse. What I will use this knife for, and what I typically use my standard pocket knife for at work, is opening boxes for like water heaters, toilets, other plumbing parts. I will use it to ream PVC pipe after I cut it with a Sawzall. I will use it to cut open packages of, again, miscellaneous plumbing parts. Like I said earlier, I also typically use this knife for cutting waterline insulation. I'll use it to cut strapping for strapping up pipe and crawl spaces. And those are some of the main tasks that I use this knife for. And this knife excels at that. Like I said earlier, I really like that swoop on that knife right there. It almost makes it extremely intuitive to sharpen and touch up, which I do frequently for my work knife because I'm constantly wrecking the edge before it has time to actually dull down. So sharpening this knife is very easy because it doesn't have a very deep curved belly. I really like how the tip is in line with the handle, kind of in line with the center of that handle, kind of like a spade blade would be. It's very easy to open with one hand, flick open with those thumb studs, or if I'm wearing gloves, I can grab down on that crossbar lock right there and fling it open, and same thing, fling it closed. It's very easy to use with gloves. I like the deep carry pocket clip. The pocket clip has a very positive retention on it. Not very hard at all to pull out of the pocket and slip it back in. One thing I was worried about is it's on caged bearings, and I'm underneath crawl spaces quite often, and crawl spaces can be dusty, dirty, nasty places, and I can get a lot of sand in my pockets as I'm crawling around. And I was worried that maybe that sounds like a fire alarm's going off in the background. Sorry about that. But I'm worried about those caged bearings getting grime in them. But the one day that I have used this at work, I was in a crawl space, I was crawling around, I did get sand in my pocket, this was in my pocket. Whenever I got out, I was like, I wonder how bad it's gonna be. And this thing was really gritty. I'm not trying to downplay it at all. And I opened it and it fired open, it locked in place, no problem, but it sounded terrible, sounded really gritty. I just blew into the pivot mechanism a couple of times, flicked it open and closed a few times, and didn't sound gritty or sandy anymore at all. So that we'll see how that performs in the future, going through multiple crawl spaces. I'm really excited to see how this knife does as far as a work knife goes. I'm very picky with my work knives, like I said, just because it's hard to find something that's a good performer, but that's why I was excited to pick this up, because of Zac. I know his background as far as carpentry and everything goes, so he's used knives in similar situations that I have in not so ideal conditions and for not maybe the right purpose that the knife should be used for. So I feel like if he's designing a knife, that it should be something at least worth giving a fair shot to. So we'll definitely be getting back to you guys in a month or two about how this knife is performed at work. I plan to at least carry it for a month, and if it performs well, it will earn a permanent spot in my work EDC, and I'm really excited to see how it does. Friday, whenever I did use it to cut some cable ties off of a sewage pump inside of a septic tank. I did a water heater, so I was cutting that piping insulation. The water heater was in a garage, so I have to use flexible AC insulation with the aluminum wrapping and the fiberglass inside to insulate the expansion tank. That did take the edge down a little bit. It was still sharp enough, it could still be worked with, but it wasn't as sharp as I like it to be. Touched it up on my Work Sharp field sharpener right at work. Just did like 5 passes on the fine diamond per side. Gave it a couple of passes on the strop, and it was back to hair popping sharp. No worries whatsoever. So, I mean, I like it. I really do. And I'm excited to see how it performs. All right, guys, well, that's it for this video. It's just a real quick, well, relatively quick, compared to other knife reviews of this knife. Like I said, I don't like to give knives thumbs up or star ratings or anything until I've used it for quite some time. It's definitely fidgety if that's something that you like to do. But yeah, go pick one up and try it for yourself. It's really cheap too. I think with shipping I paid like 58 bucks for this thing. And we all know how expensive knives can get. So go ahead, pick it up, try it out for yourself, and let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks guys, and we'll see you on the next one.